Thank you, Casey. And we have the Democratic leaders with us now, Senator Morgan McGarvey, the minority leader in the Senate, and the House leader, minority leader, Representative Joni Jenkins. I'll start with the lady first and ask you what you thought of the governor's address tonight. I think there were some winners and losers, and I think Tom Loftus and Casey Parker Bell have talked about that. We're not seeing universal pre-K, full-day kindergarten, some of those things. Early learning was one of the losers tonight. Some people are maybe not happy about the full funding for school safety. What's your take?
Well, I think the governor certainly laid out a bold plan for Kentucky, and that's what leaders do, and it's up now to the House and the Senate to fill in that. Yes, there are some things that we wish we had seen in that budget, but there are lots of good things in that budget. There is much more funding for education, for health care. I think the news about expanding the number of children that are on K-CHIP is really, really good news. We've seen a steady decrease in the number of kids in Kentucky that have been covered, and the commitment to really reach out to folks who are eligible for Medicaid and expanded Medicaid, I think, are really good news for Kentucky.
Higher ed seems to be a winner, although they had asked for a much larger boost, but they got 1% and they got another supplemental amount of funding that they really had asked for. So
right, and after 13 or 14 years of cuts, I think this is really good news for them and sets them on, when this budget is for 2 years, but I think it also lays out the framework for beyond 2 years.
Leader McGarvey, what we didn't hear tonight was casino gambling, expanded gambling. We heard about sports betting. We heard for another revenue source, raising the cigarette tax or putting a tax on vaping and all of that, $147.7 million additional. But is that enough? Do you believe the numbers? Do you trust the numbers? And do you think you're actually going to get what the governor has said that we'll get?
Well, I think when you look at what he proposed, the sports gaming, which we should absolutely do, the tax on vaping, the tax on cigarettes, these are all Republican-sponsored bills in the House. So there's already bipartisan support behind them. We should do them. I do think the numbers add up to what we're hearing right now. We're obviously going to look more at it when we get the budget, but we need more revenue. You're talking about what didn't you like, or what was a winner, or what was a loser in a budget. Let's say this is a winner of a budget, because you just can't fix 14 years of cuts in one budget. What he said is, I'm going to get new revenue in here, I'm going to cut the debt, I'm going to put the focus back on education, on higher education, on health care, on people, on jobs, on a plan that's actually going to move Kentucky forward, not just over the next 2 years, but set us up to continue to have better budgets and to make those 5, 10, 15-year gains so we can become the state we want to be.
The quasi, that's an interesting maybe surprise about the quasis essentially undoing what the special session did back in the summer of 2019. Is that how you understand it?
Well, the special session didn't help the quasis. We knew that at the time. That's why we voted against it. That's why we introduced alternative plans that would have helped. I think it's good to see a governor leading on that issue instead of just issuing pension rhetoric and fear tactics.
Performance-based funding kind of up in there too, thinking about maybe doing a freeze on that. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think we need to invest in higher education. That's what this budget finally does. Every state, you heard this, every state except for 2 in the entire country are investing in higher education. He is putting more money into higher education and figuring out a better way for the universities to get those funds.
So what would you have wanted to have heard tonight from Governor Andy Beshear?
Well, we heard what we needed to hear. We need more revenue. We need to put our focus back on kids, on education, on health care, on infrastructure, the things that are really going to help our state grow. Now, we all know that the governor proposes this budget. He did what he needed to do and he led on it. Now it comes to the legislature. It's going to look different once it gets through the legislature, but we're going to take those priorities and we're going to look at them. We're going to look at the money. Maybe we come up with even more additional revenue, but it's the process that started. I think he did a good job tonight.
And the minority party will be included in those conversations that the majority party has in crafting the budget?
We hope so.
Same question to you, because the budget does originate in the House, so you expect to be a part of those conversations?
I expect so. It will start in the A&R committee, and we will have many discussions, I anticipate, with the majority about how to go forward with this.
All right. Thank you all very much. I think this is our last little duo for this session, but who knows? I may get the band back together again. We appreciate your time. Thank you so very much, Representative Joni Jenkins and Senator Morgan McGarvey.